Hi, Mohit. I'm Suchit here.
Hey, hi, Sujit. Nice
Yep,
to see you again.
same here. So, thank you for accepting an invite and coming on for a quick talk here. So, let me just get started with the session today. And, friends, first of all, warm welcome to all of you. And uh, this is one very unique session that we're going to have in the PM space because this is the only one that is possibly very less talked in the PM space, but it is probably the most important for PMs to know so that they can actually get their products to real world. And when we say get their products to real world, it means getting the actual tangible outcome of your thought process of your strategy, okay, getting onto the ground and building it up and then getting it to the people, to your customers. It all starts from here. So today's session, we will be taking up in a bit. But before that, let me first go through a little recap of what has happened over this week. And I hope all of you are enjoying this super awesome week because we have like 7 awesome product managers from different parts of the field and from different companies. Okay, and these are folks who are Indian product managers. Either they are building for India or they are building for the world. Okay, so this is something that is really unique, and I hope all of you are making your notes extensively. So a quick recap, as we kind of had before as well. We have had speakers from different places, and today we have Mohit, who's going to kind of speak about technical product management, and he hails from Red Hat. And before I introduce Mohit, I'll just give you a quick glimpse for the folks who have missed out any of the sessions in the past. So we started off with Shailendra, and then on Monday we had a PM from Byju's. Then we went on to Tuesday where we had Movin Jain, who kind of spoke about the in-depths of how they are changing the world for India in the fintech space. Then yesterday we had Sneha, and then we have today Mohit Suman, who's going to kind of primarily focus on the technical aspects of it. And tomorrow we'll have Pawan Kashyap, who's a senior PM in Flipkart, who's going to kind of tell you about the challenges that Indian audiences face or Indian customers have. And as a PM, what are we trying to solve? So tomorrow being the last date, I would highly recommend all of you just to ensure that all of you are attending these sessions religiously and making your own notes. And we have a small 10 to 15-minute window where you would be free to ask as many questions as you want to your speakers, because this is a very important field, and it's only going to get better when you start interacting with awesome folks like Mohit. So now, um, today we are going to primarily focus on the idea of how product management, okay, behaves in the world of open source. And open source is highly kind of considered as one of the biggest value adds in today's world, because if you think about it, any kind of product, okay, that is being built, if you had to kind of spend massive amounts of money to just build that product, then probably very few people could actually build products. With the advent of open source, what happened is people started sharing knowledge, they started becoming more exposed to each other, and they started helping each other as a community. And this is helping us kind of build products very fast, and very fine products are coming out. So I leave that to Mohit to discuss, but a little bit about Mohit. So Mohit has been, he started his career through engineering itself, like he's been in engineering forever. And Mohit, correct me if you're wrong, I found a very interesting point in your profile. You work for Crime Branch.
Yeah, so that was something which I did as an internship.
Okay, that would be
Pretty awesome story. If I have
yeah,
time.
yeah. I have that in my eyes, and I'm going to ask you about that in the Q&A session. So very interesting, and yeah, if you want to kind of put in some insights about that during your talk, that'll be wonderful. So without any further delay, friends, I'll hand over the session to Mohit. And Mohit, we are eagerly waiting to hear from you around what is the idea of open source in the world of product management. And technically, just like other products, even open source products are made. And in that also, you need proper product management. So Mohit is going to kind of help us understand a little deeper into the space. With that, thank you, Mohit, for joining us today. I'll hand over the mic to you, and then I'll be quiet for some time so that you can complete your talk, and then I'll be back for your Q&A.
Yep. Thanks, Sujit, and I'm really glad that you guys are here and have done a a tremendous job in the last few days with this India Product Week, and I'm really excited to be a part of this. I'll quickly jump onto my slides and I'll start sharing my screen. Just let me know in chat if you guys
Sure.
don't feel it's looking good, and I'll quickly jump.
Yeah. So we can see a slide now.
So I think you should be seeing the title of the talk today and my name. And I think so. A brief introduction about me. I am Mohit Suman, and I currently live in Pune. And I have been working at RedHat for the past 9 years. And this is my first company. So it has been a very awesome ride here. And I have started, as Sujit mentioned, from engineering background. And then I moved to a product management background. And that role change has made a tremendous impact on my life, both technically and even understanding the scenarios in the day-to-day world. And my most focus around today's topic would be around that how product management works in the world of open source, right? I'm pretty sure most of us have heard about what open source is, and have some of them might have definitely been working on it, and some might be really excited to work on it in the future. So this is something I completely believe that is a very important part of product management workflow, not specific to any domain. It's just not related to technical stuff. It's related to any domain you work in product management, be it banking, be it tech space, and be it any other domain. So I'm going to move forward with my slides. But before that, I just want to make sure that this is a very interactive session. I want to keep it because today's Friday, right? So I don't want to bore you guys up, and I just want to make sure that whatever I'm speaking about, if you guys feel that, okay, if you want to have anything about the topic, feel free to put on chat. I'll discuss at that point itself, or maybe we can do it at the end. As Suchit mentioned, we have some slot at that point. So just making it sure that we have fun around this and make Friday a bit awesome. So let's move on to the first one. So the first slide, if you see, the heading is magic with open source. Now, what magic means, right? It's nothing like if you raise your wand and it goes, okay, something has happened, right? Even today, only in the morning, I read that in 2022 January, Harry Potter is going to celebrate the 20th anniversary, right? So that's something what magic relates to us as a kid, right? I'm a 90s kid, and that was something very great for me. And the same goes with the open source world, right? You can achieve anything and mostly everything if you collaborate with people, if you collaborate with companies. And generally people have a thought process that, okay, if I'm doing a product management, I have to work for a product, and that product should have a defined goal, and no other competitors should work in the same lines. And that's what the job of the product management generally people think of. But if you see, there are certain products like where you have to work with different companies together to make that product awesome, right? Let's say in the slide, if you see, I have mentioned few companies like RedHat, Microsoft, IBM. These are some of them. There can be multiple ones, like it can be Facebook, it can be Netflix, it can be any other ones. I have just listed 3 of them. So the understanding is, if we are working with these type of collaborative companies, the idea is not to live in the world of competition, to live in a world where we can collaborate together and make an awesome feature which is helpful to each and every one of us. Let's say if I'm talking just about a technical perspective, right? We have seen people working in space of web development, right? And we work on Angular, or we worked on React, right? These are open source frameworks, right? Okay. So as I was saying, these are open source products, right? And we have seen engineers working on collaborating with each other, and there are a very good presence on GitHub, GitLab, and whatever sense. But how does a product manager work, right? As a product manager, I need to give or define my ideas or goals to my engineering team, to my designers, to my other stakeholders, that this is what I want to achieve. Now, when I say that this is what I want to achieve, and if I have a collaboration with other PM of a different company, let's say I'm working at RedHat and someone at Netflix also wants to work on the same technology. So as a product manager, I should be in a space where I can collaborate with the same product manager as my counterpart, and discuss that if we build X feature, you build Y feature, and we both collaborate and make that X and Y bundled together, awesome. Will that look great? And the answer is always yes, because the idea is you get continuous feedback across the community. And if you see the percentage, I have mentioned 90% customer satisfaction rate. And by customer, I don't mean any specific customer or your client whom you're working with. I am saying this customer as a normal user. He can be your client, he cannot be your client, but this customer is someone who is just using your product, either through like he has paid you money and then he's using a product, or it's just available in the market and he's using it, right? So I have said 90 and not 100 because there's always a gray area that no one wants to get into. So that 10% is always left because none of the products will be awesome always. There's always a gray area. But when we say we collaborate, the collaboration should be in a sense that, okay, the success ratio should be 90%. And we have seen a lot of collaboration in the past. Like a recent example, which I'm going to give you. So there's a Web 3.0 technology, which is going to come in the near future. Facebook has renamed itself known as Meta. And there are many conflicting theories that it's good, it's bad. Let's not get into that. But Microsoft is also working on Meta. Now, there are other companies who are also working on Meta. And there can be a scenario where other companies can collaborate together to present an overall picture that how Web 3.0 should look in the future. Currently, we are using Web 2.0. And if we say Web 3.0 is going to the future, and if multiple companies get together and make that product will be really awesome. Because then you have the brain of all the good engineers working, all the good designers working there, and it will really be as awesome as possible. When I say 1 million teams empowered, the focus is 1 million, right? And the number I've highlighted here, 1 million, is because if you see a very huge number, we generally get impacted to it. And I'm sure if you guys have attended few other talks in the past few days, you might have seen most of the product managers have spoken about metrics, the numbers. The numbers give you an exact theory that, okay, why my product is awesome? Because people are using it. People are seeing that, okay, it's being used at large scale. And same goes with open source. It's not that because it's open, people are not using it. People are using it. So when I say 1 million team empowered, I mean that because the same set of workflow or same set of products which we are trying to build is being used by multiple teams across companies, across the collaboration workflow. And that's why that number is very huge. We don't have an exact number, that's never possible, but the number 1 million is shown so that we understand that, okay, there are so many teams who are going to work on it. And that's a beauty what I want to present here with the magic of open source. Now, when this is a very big theoretical scenario that, okay, this will look good, that will look good, we collaborate, we do this and that, but why this is important? So the first one would be because we want to build products which the users or the customers love, right? Let's say we are an engineering team, and I'm a product manager, and my engineering team is going to work on a web framework which uses React. Now I know there are product managers who are working on to make that product awesome. So by awesome, I don't mean that it has a lot of million of downloads or some other story. By awesome, I mean that the customers or the users are loving it. And then you understand, okay, this collaboration has resulted something fruitful. And the second most important thing with the open source is you are building a product with trust and with transparency. Everything is out there in the open. Whatever roadmap, whatever planning, whatever prioritization you have with the product is out in the open. People can see what's your roadmap for the next 3 months, what's your roadmap for the next 6 months. They can understand what's going to come in the future, right? When I say when Web 3.0 is coming in the future, because I know that there's a roadmap which teams or the companies are working on. And that is where I can trust, okay, this is something there and this is very transparent. Anyone can see, anyone can understand that roadmap. And that's why the power of open source is highly reflected, right? You can see the transparency, you can see the trust. And the last one is quality is not a trade-off, right? When you work with multiple companies, when you work in open source way, as a product manager, my idea is to release or demonstrate or have a product which is suitable for users use across the world, right? And quality is the most important thing, how you decide a product, right? Let's say I was seeing some of the talk a few days back. So someone mentioned that how many people like IRCTC? So this question was raised, and I'm 100% sure the answer in that talk was that not many of them liked. And it's not that because the product is bad or quality is not good, right? There are certain aspects like people don't like the UI. That's it. But the backend works pretty well. So at a product manager, I cannot say my product is bad, right? Because the product, the functionality is done. The only thing I needed to take care of, whether the quality, whether the significance of that product is not being compromised. There can be multiple facets to it. Not everything will be perfect. You keep on incrementally deciding the roadmap, and that's your responsibility as a product manager, right? Because if you can release one product with 110% of accuracy, what you're going to do for the next iterations. So it's not possible and it's not practical also. But keeping that in mind, we cannot and we should not make quality as a trade-off. So this was the brief overview why I wanted to focus more on the open source stuff. A bit of technical scenarios here, but I'll jump into the next slide. Okay. So once you see that, okay, this is what I mentioned, that the collaboration, the products and other stuffs are done. So my next workflow would be, let me just remove this. Okay. The craft of working with X. Now I have kept this X as I, as a product manager, or let's say you who are aspiring product managers or who are product managers successful in their own domain, understand that as a product manager, I need to work with different set of stakeholders. But when people say that stakeholders, what those stakeholders exactly are, right? And in the journey of open source too, there is one important addition in that stakeholder, and that stakeholder is work with community. And I'm going to jump onto that at the end, because before that, let's take the usual ones. So as a product manager, the first important thing, I need to work with my other PMs too. Because if I'm working in a company, my company will have a vision, my company will have a goal that can be a 3 months, 6 months, or a year roadmap. And I will have multiple products which are going to engage with me. And those products will have a different PM. So my first job as a product manager would be to interact with that product manager, work with that product manager to understand that how those two different products can connect together and help the overall team to ship out that successful product. Let's say there's a car, right? So a car has multiple facets, right? It has an engine, it has a dashboard, it has a seats, it has like a awesome aesthetic looks. People have their own choices, like they might like an electric car in the future, or they might still go with a in generation car which still uses any type of fuel. So but the important part is there are multiple components to that product, and with that component there are multiple product managers who are working to make that product awesome. So as a responsibility for me, I need to collaborate with a different product managers to make sure that this is how I'm going to make that product successful. And I'm highlighting these because open source world requires this a lot. Let's say I, as a product manager, I am working on a product which is being developed at RedHat. And there is a counterpart of me who's working in Microsoft, who is also going to contribute to that product. Now, for the engineering team to connect together and discuss and build on that future, first me and my Microsoft counterpart should engage together, discuss, and then go ahead and draft a roadmap and then ask the engineering to work on it. And this is something different which generally happens in other product management companies, because in open source, you are allowed to work with different counterparts in other companies, right? There's no such known as competition happening for that specific product because it's open source, it's open to the world, and we want the community to evolve. And that's why we want everyone to work with different PMs. Now, the second part is one of the important challenges that everyone faces as a product manager, that working with designers. As I mentioned previously, metrics is like the backbone of a product manager. If you can show good metrics, everything looks good. If you don't have a good metrics, things looks a bit shaky. But when we work with designers, we cannot talk to them based on numbers, right? We have to talk to them how this is going to improve the life of a normal user. This is what the idea is, right? So this is also a challenging aspect everyone is going to encounter in the future. And with this session, I want to highlight this more because uh, I'm I am mentioning these things as a real world scenario, which I have personally faced in my journey of product management. And I think if we can take any percentage out of it and apply it in your daily life and improve it, nothing like that. So the other third one is working with engineers. So everyone by now, I think, understands that as a product manager, you need to work with engineers, right? That's the people who are going to drive your product, that the people who are going to make a product awesome, and then you can ship it out to the market. But engineers, as I mentioned in the slide, that they are the real translators of ideas into reality. So as a product manager, my important factor would be that I need to understand what are the real constraints of an engineering team. And I have to understand pretty early before I jump on my prioritization part. So let's say I have drafted my roadmap. Okay, in 3 months, I'm going to build this awesome thing. But before building that awesome thing, I need to understand what are the technical constraints of my engineering team is. And this is where I think I've given an Easter egg here. When I'm saying technical constraints, so you might worry that, okay, I'm a product manager who doesn't know about anything about technical stuff. What about me? So there's an Easter egg here. In the next slides, I'm going to talk about why you need to be technical or non-technical for a product manager, right? So we move on to that pretty soon. But jumping on to here, the understanding is if we are having a very awesome craft where we can work with different PMs, we can work with our designers, our engineers, and the last one is working with the community. Now, when I say working with the community, see, the community is very big, right? It's the entire world is a community, right? It's not stuck here. It's not, let's say Bangalore is not the community or California is not the community. The communities are across the globe, right? So when I say work with the community, now when I have a specific product which I want to work and I want my community to get involved into that. So for that, as a product manager, first important thing is I need to give them context. What exactly are we trying to build, right? Are we just going to showcase something which is just an imaginary part, or we have a concrete plan? Do we have a clear vision for that? And in this process, the important factor is I need to show the community that the product which I'm going to ship, which I need involvement from them, is in control. We have a dedicated roadmap. We have a proper guideline that this is what, as a company, we are trying to achieve. Do you think we can collaborate on this and work together? And then only the community gets involved, and then they start working on it, and they understand, okay, this is awesome. This looks good. Because let's give an example. People in web development still use, I think they use Bootstrap, right? Twitter had a Bootstrap for everyone to use. It's an open source stuff. But when decided that why they need Bootstrap, so there was a very awesome history behind that. The entire management team sat down, discussed with the community that why they need to have this type of product. And this is going to continue in the future, right? As I mentioned, for Metaverse too, this is going to happen for Metaverse. And I'm sure in the future, if something interesting comes up, people are going to collaborate. And this is where, as a product manager, you need to understand your scope when you work with an open source. I'm sure that few attendees who are right now are people who are seeing it live stream, right? They might be working in an open source environment, or they can work in open source environment in the future. And this is India Product Week, right? We have set of awesome product managers, and we are trying to make sure that India is the land of having awesome product managers, right? So I completely believe that we will have folks in India who are going to work as a product manager, working in the world of open source, and definitely making a change, right? So we'll move on quickly to the next one. I am quickly going to the chat section. If someone has any questions, or I don't see any questions here. If anyone has right now, please feel free to drop a text here, and I can quickly answer them, or I'll just move.
Well, there's a Q&A window as well. So there are a few questions in the Q&A window.
Okay, great. So I'll go with the logic who posted a question first and answer that just that way. So I think there's a question from Kavita, and I'll repeat the question here. We have often seen Yeah. So, Kavita, to answer your question, that perspective from the technical side is, I think I'm in a good space to answer that because I am currently working as a technical product manager and I have been as a developer in the past few years. So, the important factor when we say, like, I as a business unit, if I have some roadmap, right, and the technical team is unable to comprehend that, or they have some other vision, right, it's not always that you don't understand. There is a scenario where you might have a different vision. You think, no, 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 this is not going to work, this is not right, and then there might be a friction, and that's always acceptable in the field of open source, because the more you discuss, the more you understand, the more you find an answer to it. So now, to reduce this friction, the most important part is you need to do two things. First, you need to go back to the history and see, did you try that thing in the past too, and how it failed? And let's say you've that thing you've never tried it. This is the first time you're trying to build it. The other approach would be that you can start with a small iteration of it. Don't do everything at once, right? Start with a small iteration of it, get the confidence of your technical team and the business unit together, try to build a small proof of concept and see how that proof of concept goes. Now, once the proof of concept is done and when you see the results, then a discussion between the business unit and the technical team would make more sense, because now you have something to prove to them that, okay, when we try this set of things, it works in this direction. So I think we can go and proceed and cover up a big chunk of it. And that's why slowly you can reduce it. It won't happen at one shot. If it's not possible, because that's how the behavior of this entire technology world is. But I think the starting with proof of concept will surely help, both from the product management side and from the technical side. I think I have answered this. If you feel anything else, I think we can take it in the next Q&A slot. And I think we have more now. So with interest of time, I'll quickly go and I'll take one more later. I'll just keep this Q&A window open so that it's there. So I'll move to the next one quickly. So now this question, as I said, there's an Easter egg there. So sorry, I'm not Marvel, so I'll keep the Easter egg till the end. But I have kept the Easter egg a bit in between mid credits, right? So, do you think a product manager needs to be technical? If I say yes, I'm saying yes because I am a technical product manager, so I'll give my perspective of it. And I think that's what you guys want, right? You want my perspective. Because if you want theory, there is everything available on internet and YouTube. So feel free to do that. And I'm sure you are going to learn a lot. And I'm going to connect you guys later on LinkedIn and Twitter, so you can ping me on that too, so that we can discuss on top of it. So now, if I say a product manager needs to be technical, so the first important part is there are different set of responsibilities and different set of expectations. So as I saw in the question Q&A section, there were few questions which were related to that, how you reduce friction between the technical team, how you interact with the technical team. So this is possible if you have a technical background, because then it becomes easier for you to understand what exactly the constraints can be, right? When I say that, okay, my team needs to deliver this feature in next 3 months, but I understand to develop that feature in 3 months as an engineer, it is not possible. And even if it's possible, it's not going to come out as awesome as we want. So as a technical product manager, I understand that what are the pitfalls, why I'm requesting those changes. And if I know the pitfalls, accordingly, I can plan out my roadmaps. So the basic stuff of a product manager is you need to have a roadmaps, you need to have a prioritizations, and you need to have a very good sync of the development cycle within your team. You need to understand what's the capacity of your engineering team, what's the development cycle we are going to follow, and how that works, right? So I'll give an example in open source how we do. So as a product manager, my idea is to release more often, more quickly, so that we get more feedback from the community. So we try to make sure that every 3 weeks we do a small release with certain set of features. So once we do every release, that release every 3 weeks, and the release is out, and we see how people are using it, and as soon as we get feedback around it, we try to incorporate in the upcoming release. So like due to that constraint, I have taken 3 weeks and I know set of features because I understand what's the capacity of my technical team is, how many set of features I can release. And once I say how many features I can release, that is based on my scenarios which I built across that. And that's something which we need to discuss, that if I say I need to be a technical product manager, what are my pros and what are my cons? And why I'm highlighting pros and cons, because pros and cons are something which we need to do in every field of life. Like whatever decision we want to make, it should be stated in a way that, okay, what pros it has, what cons it has, so that we can make a good judgment. And as a product manager, that's one of the very highly important skill set people need to make a correct judgment. Because once you decide going into the roadmap, if in between you decide, oh, my judgment was not right, let's skip it, let's start from scratch. So basically you have wasted a lot of monies, because in big companies you need a lot of money to go and iterate onto that, and you have wasted the crucial resource which you have with your team. You have wasted few months where your competitor can go ahead and just release the product, and then you're lost in the market. So lost. So these are some of the scenarios where we have to understand that what we need to do as a product manager. What are the pros to be a technical product manager? What are the cons of being a technical product manager? As always, I'll go with cons first. So I think as a product manager, we can work with a team size which is very huge, or we can work with a team size which is very less. So one of the important cons is when we have a very large team where we have a set of engineers who need specific roadmap with respect to technical enhancements, technical challenges, engaging with the community on technical aspects. I think then the basic role of technical product managers come into picture. But if the team is very small, right, a non-technical product manager can also work on top of it. And that is something which is good, because then the collaboration is between one person and let's 1:3 ratio. But when the collaboration is 1:20, and you have that acumen to understand the challenges faced by that entire engineering team, it definitely helps to broaden your scope and understand, okay, this is what I need to do, this is my scenarios, and this is what my team can do. So let's frame my roadmap accordingly. That's it. The other aspect is, if I am technical, and when I define my roadmap, with the roadmap, I will also define what are my risks, right? What are the challenges, what are the risks my product can face when I'm launching that. And that risk will be mostly around the technical aspects. And let's be honest, not all risks are technical, right? There are risks which are business oriented, there are risks which are market oriented, and there are other type of risks. But as a technical PM, you try to get into that domain where you always think, okay, my risk, this is why technically it's not possible. That's one of the risks. But that's not always true, right? And the last one is can become extension of the development team. So as I mentioned, if I'm focused mostly on technical side, I can act as a development team member, right? I can understand, okay, this is not working because that technology does not support this framework, and so it's not going to happen. So this is something which I'm telling from my real life experience, because when I moved from my developer experience to a product management experience, this is something which I faced, because I was trying to handle things mostly on the technical perspective, because I had an acumen for that, and I tried to incorporate that same thing. But that's not every time you want to achieve, right? So as a technical product manager, one of the important pros what we have is we understand the technical trends, and we understand and how it's going to affect the roadmap what we have. When I mentioned Web 3.0, this is why, because I have that grasp that, okay, this is some tech stack which is going to come in the future. Should my roadmap take that into consideration, and should my 3 months plan, or should my March 2022 plan cover that? Or should I say, okay, it's time for that product to build, so I can keep that for November 2022. Maybe when the next India Product Week happens, I can demo that. So that's something which is one of the pros which we have as a technical product manager. We can understand the tech. And this is very helpful when you're working in a tech industry, right? When your product needs to imbibe all the great things which is happening in technology, and you have an acumen of technology, a product manager job is really awesome. It is just awesome. And the first one was improving communication between the development and engineering team. So this itself is self-explanatory, that why, as a technical product manager, how I can make that performance improvement and everything very, very quickly, because I have that good collaboration between my development engineering team, and as from my business perspective, I can give them proper roadmap that, okay, this is if we do, and this is what the competition is currently doing. I think we are in a good space to make sure we release this first, and we'll have a better set of community involvement. If you are trying to achieve that. So that's one of the pros. And the third one is subject matter expert on technical stuff, right? So if I am engaging in a business discussion, and as a technical product manager, I can engage with my entire business unit, and I can let them know that this is why we are trying to go in this direction, because technically it's more advanced, technically it's more helpful, and this is what is going to drive the future. And trust me, I think in the coming few years, technology is going to play a lot vital part. It still does, like everything is technical, right? We have been working from home like past 2 years, and everything has moved to online. So that's pretty awesome, right? And this is going to make sure that in the coming years, everything is going to be more technically advanced. So I think being a technical product manager is going to help you in a very, very awesome way. And if someone is aspiring to be that, feel free to reach out to me, and I think we can connect over that. I'll quickly move to that. So once we understand why we need to have that, so the other most important factor is the strategic direction, right? And this has a very important significance, because as a product manager, I need to gather my information. I need to define that information, that, okay, let's say I have a set of information which I gathered. Now, how that information is going to define my strategies. That strategy can be a short-term strategy or a long-term strategy. And that strategy is going to define based on these three key principles. The most important one is the business strategic goals. I, as a product manager, is working for a company, right? That company is definitely going to have a business goal. And my aim is to make sure whatever data and whatever direction I want my team to lead into should be in context of the business goal. I cannot come up and say, okay, I think this will look good, so let's start building it, but it's not going to match with the strategy what my company has, right? So this is one example, right? The other most important factor, which is across domains, like I'm not just considering about the technical domain, it can be across domain, is the market demands and opportunity, right? So I think yesterday, yes, Paytm IPO was there, and it was not that great for day one, right? But if you see the structure of the growth Paytm had, because they somehow or the other way understood that what the demands of the consumer are, what are the shortcomings, and they basically followed the opportunity they got. And today it's a highly used place across the country. And I'm really glad that India has such awesome infrastructure for digital payment. Just not about Paytm, it's about any other like PhonePe, Google Pay, and other stuffs. And I think we had one speaker from PhonePe, so I think that was really interesting. So India has that culture where they're going to the market demands and opportunities and trying to make that product. So when, as a product manager, I need to understand that, okay, this is the market demand, and I've seen that based on this demand, I have this opportunity, and that should be my most important strategic decision part. That, okay, this is what I think, this is how it looks, and let's go and build on top of it. That's where the product management comes into picture. And then you pass on that to the engineering team to build and make sure that it works really great, right? And the third one is like the technological and financial resources. So there might be certain scenarios in our product management journey where we have our strategy, where we have our vision, but we don't have the technology to achieve it. Or let's say we have even the technology, but we don't have the finance to make it possible. So this is where we need to make sure that we fine tune our strategies. We have to make sure that we fine tune our strategy in such a way that we overcome these challenges. Let's say we don't have a technology to make it, right? But we have to make sure that we fine tune our product strategy in such a way that we can overcome this. And this is where the world of open source comes into picture. So me as a company does not have that technology, let's say, but I don't have that set of engineers who are working on it. But I know that there is some company known as X is working on that technology, and they have set of engineers and they're trying to build that same. So I, as a product manager, goes and discusses with their product manager, and we collaborate together just to reduce this gap. And eventually what happens, we extend our community use around that technology and make an awesome product. And once we have that, I think slowly and slowly, when we have that collaboration done, I think the financial resources can also be taken into account. This is very generic one. This is something which I just kept as generic as possible so that we understand what exact strategies we need to have. And these are the three pillars which every person who is in the field of product management will definitely encounter in his day-to-day life. And this is what we always need to keep back in our mind when we are trying to build a product or we have a roadmap for a different product. Okay, so I'll quickly go to this. So there's a very awesome framework which I have read online, and I try to follow this a lot sometimes, known as Moscow prioritization, which is must have, should have, could have, and will not have, right? So I'll start with will not have first, because as a product manager, I can have gazillion list of priorities, but it is for me to decide what is important at this current time frame. Let's say I want to have a product which goes on to Mars and automatically builds a nest or a house for us to live. But that's not required at this time frame. I know that's a very awesome idea. I can do it like 5 years or 10 years down the line when Mr. Musk goes there. But I, as a product manager, need to understand what will not have. What could have? As a word said, could have, like it's something which nice to have. Even if we don't have it, it won't have that much impact on the market. And there are always certain scenarios where we find this, right? It's good to have it, but if we don't achieve it at this time frame, it's fine. We can leave it. We can do it later on. The most important factors are two: one, must have and should have, right? So important differences are, the should have factor is, this is not really important, right? Like should have, it's not really important, but if we achieve this will be really icing on the cake. So that's the should have, right? And the must have is that this has to be there. Without this, we are not going to go ahead with this. So as a product manager, once we decide a roadmap for a product, if we have these four set of things when we chalk down the listings, I think this is really going to help us to frame that, okay, what is must have for us and what is should have for us. When we decide these two, we have at least a concrete set of priorities and roadmap, and then we can play around with the could have and will not have. So that's how the Moscow frameworks comes into play. And for every product, this can change. It's not that for every product, this has to be true. This can be true for some, this cannot be true for some. So for different products, we have to deploy this at different times. And the most important part why we use this is to give us clarity. So any point of time as a PM, when we think that, okay, this is not giving us clarity and this is creating more confusions, we need to skip it. We definitely need to skip it. But this is only helpful when we want to have some clarity. Let's say we have 3 features and we are not sure whether to have them or not have them. Let's use this framework and then prioritize on top of it. So I think I have few more minutes left before we jump on the Q&A part, right? So I'll quickly jump onto the real life product management slide, because that is something I'm really excited about. And this is, I think, is most useful because the theory is always available everywhere, but the real use case is something which I think everyone wants to read. Even when I attend conferences or talk, this is something which really excites me. So when I say real life product management, I'm not going to go through the slides because you can just see it. You can just understand this basic workflow I have, but I'll just jump onto the top headings, which is 80%, 10x, 40%, 60%. So the most important scenario of product management is that when we are building a product, right, the maximum amount of time we're going to give on the roadmaps, on the plannings, on the prioritization. That's why it's 80%. Now, when I say we give 80% amount of time on these 2-3 things, the outcome we want is we want 10x of time of what we are trying to achieve. Let's say Swiggy has a delivery service of 1 hour, right? And suddenly they wanted to jump into a system where they have Swiggy Instamart, where they will deliver products in 15 minutes. Now, how they are going to judge that 15 minutes roadmap, what they had with a new product, Swiggy Instamart, is helpful for them? I'm going to give you some real life use cases here. That's so that you can understand that how it's pins out. And so when I say this is something me as a product manager will think, okay, if I can roll out a product which is increasing the efficiency or the usage of my product a lot, let's say by 10x, right? People are using Instamart every day. They're ordering milk, they're ordering cold drinks and other stuffs from Instamart. And people, you see that, okay, there's a lot of usage in Instamart. So you see, okay, 10x time amount of usage has increased. So this is how this real life scenario can improve. Now, when we jump onto that 40% and 60% of the scenario, as a product manager, when I say I have a product, that product will only become a product when I ship it, right? Once I ship it, how would I know that product is successful, not successful? So at least 40% of my time I have to denote and understand what are the metrics I need to use to understand the success of that product. Every company, I think, has, like, let's say Google, right? Let's say Google has lots of products they release, right? And they have lots of products which they just shut down. That's how the cycle is, right? They release 100, they release and they shut down 90, right? The top 10 will never go. Gmail, Google Maps will never go, so don't worry. So my idea is something which we need to understand, that when we ship something and once that is shipped, how we measure that product. And we have to devote certain amount of time to get that metrics in place. I have not talked about metrics a lot in my slides because metrics is always important for any story, because then you easily explain the stakeholders that, okay, this is why it's good, this is why it's not working out, and this is why we need to change this. But we need to devote time to understand how we ship the product and how we measure that product success. And the most important part is building great products, right? As a product manager, wherever you go in your life, in whichever domain you work and throughout your journey, you will always aim to build great products, right? So you need to allocate that 60% amount of your time to understand that how you're going to build that great products. And by great products, I mean, let's say Netflix, right? Netflix does not own any movie theater because but it has a large database of movies and streaming shows and other stuffs, right? Uber doesn't have a showroom, but it has a large pool of cars and other services. So these are some of the examples where you had a vision, you build a great product, but you understand that why that's important. And this is something which I want to focus more on, because we can define the roadmaps, we can improve the workflow, we can ship it as awesome as possible, but we are doing these 3 or 4 things so that we build a great product. And that's why it's that important. I have not given it 100% because you cannot devote 100% to one aspect and move out of it. You need to devote certain practical amount of aspect. And that's one of the great qualities of a product manager, right? You need to understand that what amount of time, what priority you need to give at what set of things. So that's what I had for you guys to understand, to see and learn. And this is something which I am really excited about, the product management journey across in India. And I think we have really awesome set of folks. And I'm pretty sure in the coming future, maybe in the next India Product Week next year, we'll have more set of you guys joining us. So that's it from my end. And I'm really glad to have a discussion with you guys. Thank you for your time and effort. I'm not going to stop because I have to answer some Q&A. But this is where I work at RedHat. And this is where you can connect on to me on LinkedIn. Feel free to drop me a connection, and we can connect definitely. I'm very active on Twitter. I'm pretty active. Like if you ping me at 3 o'clock in the night, I can reply to you. So that's there. And this is my GitHub handle. So if anyone wants to collaborate something on the open source world, feel free to do it. And this is a really exciting journey. So I think I have given a certain good amount of knowledge with this. So I quickly jump onto the Q&A section because I think there are very, very Q&A questions, 9 of them, and I have around 10 minutes of time to answer them. So Suchit, you want to say something?
Yeah. So first of all, Mohit, thank you for the very informative talk that you shared with us today. Along with that, I think we are running a little short on time. I will not stop you. You can start with the Q&A, and if you want, I can just read out the questions for you if that helps.
Yes, definitely. I think that also
Okay.
helps.
Okay. So Aman has a question. Don't you think transparency is limited in case of sharing roadmap and other important facts with different teams within the organization or externally? For example, sales team will never know about what will come next until it is prepared to launch. Is it fine to say transparency always exists cross-functionals as well? So possibly, I think what Aman implied here is he's trying to understand if transparency um, is limited in case of sharing roadmap. Yeah. So if you are not sharing roadmap transparently across different departments, different companies, okay, so wouldn't there be a gap? So that's what Aman wants to kind of clarify.
Yeah, so thanks, Aman, for your question. It's a really great question. So the first thing is, I think when I mentioned building trust with transparency was it's applicable across your organization. It's just not limited to your product management and the development team. It's across the entire organization. So let's say, for an example, if I give you, if I'm building a product and my sales team knows that, okay, this product does X amount of feature, and they are going to pitch this to different customers. But if I am transparent with my sales team and I will tell them that, okay, listen, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to roll out one important feature, which is going to improve a lot. So when the sales team pitches the same to a customer, he can just say, okay, you buy this product and in the next 2 weeks, you will get a release update, which will improve your performance. So this happens because I'm transparent with my sales team and I have shared my roadmap that this is what I'm going to release or build in the next 2 weeks, so that my sales team has a heads up that, okay, this is what is coming. And when they compete in the market, they can directly go ahead and tell the customers that, okay, try our product because our product has this feature which is going to roll out soon in the next few weeks. So that's where transparency is very important. And I think transparency exists across cross-functional teams. It's not limited to a development or a product management team. It's across uh, organization. So I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, so possibly the question was a little, I think, like misunderstood. But I think what he also wanted to understand was what is the level of transparency that is required. So yeah, I think that really stands out. You have to be very transparent across the board. Okay, I'll just summarize some questions. They are really long, so I'll just make it short for you. Okay, so Ankur is interested to understand. So if there's a should have, okay, in Moscow, if there's a should have feature, how do we land up to understand if that is a should have or not?
Okay.
Because for a PM, it might seem should have. For a customer, it might seem should have. For somebody else, it might seem should have. So how do we kind of come to a consensus there?
Yeah, this is also one of a pretty interesting question to answer. So when I say must have and should have, so this is true for whatever priorities I have built, right? So every priority can be a must have, or every priority should be like a should have, and we just have one feature. So how we jump into should have? So there are multiple scenarios where we can look. So we can see that when we have released in the past, how users are trying to use that product, how often it is used. Once we understand that how often it has been used, then we can understand, okay, based on the same lines, I think this feature can go as a should have. And this is something which the product management should take a decision, so that the engineering team is very much confident. Okay, as a business unit has taken the decision, so we build on top of it. Now, when I say past history, but let's say there is a very fresh new product which has come to the market, it does not have any past history. How we understand that what should be the should have? So there you need to understand different scopes of your product, right? What your product is going to achieve, right? Let's say your product is going to be the number one stockbroker app in India, right? That's your product roadmap, right? And in that, you want to highlight as important feature, which is, it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary, but you as a user think it's necessary. So in that case, I think when you discuss that with the development team, and they also prioritize that, okay, no, it's not necessary, it's just one or two use case, then you can just come in agreement with the development team, your other stakeholders, and say, okay, it should have, it's not in the must have. So that way, I think there has to be a collaboration between you, your engineering team, your designing team, and other stakeholders, just to make sure. So one of the important factors with product management is not all decisions are always done by a product management. It's always a collaboration effort between the different stakeholders. That's how it should be.
Right. So, and at times even possibly customer service can also help you take that decision.
Yes.
If any feature really needs to be launched. Okay.
Exactly.
So that answers your question, Ankur. Anant is asking, is it like tech PMs work for products other than dev tool products? Do startups need tech PMs for products other than dev tools products? Okay, and I think Anant might have misunderstood. Anant, even if you're making a dev tool, it's again a product, right? So for that, you either ways need a product manager. Even if you're making a product that requires tech, but there would be non-technical aspects also. So for those also we have PM, something like UI UX PMs. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not, or even marketing PM. So we have PMM roles, which are product marketing, product management, marketing roles. So there are different forms of PMs, including ones which are technical and non-technical. So what Mohit is currently is more on the technical lines, and a lot of today's world products, they're all tech enabled products, so they require a PM with a sound knowledge of technology to a great extent. Coming to Ruben's question, do product managers need programming skills or any of the technical stuffs like say Azure cloud? So if you need to understand ingrained ideas about cloud services, is sufficient with innovative ideas, or is it sufficient with innovative ideas? So how would you address that, Mohit?
So I work at Red Hat and I work on the cloud side. So this is something very related to my field of work. So I don't think product manager needs programming skills as such. Like it's not needed for you to like go ahead and start coding, but you need to have your fundamentals clear, right? When you, let's say, when you're building a cloud product, you need to understand what exactly that cloud is going to solve a problem, right? Let's say I'm working on Azure, right? Or I'm working on AWS, or I'm working on Google Cloud, or I'm working on RedHat OpenShift. I need to have that fundamentals clear as a product manager. And that's where the technical side of comes into picture. It's not necessary that you need to have your coding skills done. And I think by programming skill, you meant a coding skill here. So it's not that, but you need to have a fundamentals clear, because once the fundamentals are clear, then it helps you to collaborate your innovative ideas there and then decide the roadmap. Because then you understand, okay, Azure has this feature there, and let's see, I'm working at RedHat OpenShift, and I know, okay, Azure has this feature there. When I understand that what that feature exactly does, because my fundamentals are clear, then only I can define a roadmap for my product and Red Hat to make sure that we can compete with Azure. So that's why fundamentals are pretty much important. This is specific to your question in the cloud space. But it's not necessary that you need to have a very coding knowledge out there. If you have, well and good, nothing like that, but it's not required. You need to have your fundamentals clear. That's what my 2 cents on this.
I think to a great extent, yes, technical knowledge in technical product management would only suffice till the point that you understand the idea of these concepts and not necessarily implement yourself. So then why would I need a dev team if the team needs to do that? Okay, so this is something that, friends, all of us can kind of carry away from what Mohit has just suggested, that at the end of the day, it's more of the fundamental ideas. We conceptually understand what it means. So if there's a slowness in your website, okay, what could the possible reasons be? If you can start thinking about it, then you can brainstorm it with your team, with your dev team especially, and come up with a solution. That, you know what, possibly we possibly want to move into a CDN, okay, so that our entire content is distributed across the globe, and if people are accessing from any part of the world, they get it instantly, right? So these ideas, if you're able to kind of understand at a high level and talk, that is more important than trying to kind of understand how to go about implementing CDN and how do you set up all the server configurations. Nobody cares about that as a PM. Okay, so it's at the end of the day, getting your product out into the world and make it successful is your job, not necessarily how do you make it successful, as in like implementation wise. That's not your job. Implementation, you have different teams for that.
Yeah, and this is very helpful, because in that sense only you can communicate with your teams, right?
Yeah.
Because, and even when the team comes back to you saying that, okay, it's not possible, then you need to understand why it's not possible, right? You just cannot say, okay, it's not possible, let's not do it. You need to understand why it's not possible.
Why
So
is it
that's
not
that's
possible?
so that's like a mutual understanding we need to have, and that's something which a technical acumen helps you to do. So that's
Yeah.
it.
In fact, somebody asked a question around this, that what if the technical team says it's not possible? So I think this is what Mo just answered, that
Yeah.
if somebody else comes and tells you it's not possible, you don't leave it there, right? You got to understand why is it not possible, and to understand why is it not possible, they'll use some jargon. Now, if you don't understand those jargons at a high level, what do they mean? How would you justify if it is possible or not possible? Okay. So we have a question from Akash. Apart from Moscow, what are the other frameworks that are used frequently across organization? Uh, I think more this would be pretty relative, right? I mean, well,
Yeah.
from your perspective, what do you think are the other frameworks that you popularly kind of use it back at workplace?
So I think when I mentioned about framework, it was nothing specific that everyone has to use it. This is something which people, if they feel comfortable using it, they do. Uh, Personally, me, I have used Moscow in some of the cases, and I have mostly not used any frameworks, because sometimes what happens, you rely on your basic common sense to define a product rather than using specific frameworks. So my advice is to not focus on frameworks. But if you specifically ask me that in my organization, what specific frameworks we use, so one of them is Moscow we use. One of them is, let me give you a Google link, or maybe I can just share it across to these guys and they can forward you, I think, on chat. That framework basically is, you have a funnel, right? So there's a funnel there, and we prioritize issues from the top to the bottom, right? And we see that how that issue is going to affect every issue which is there in the funnel. So that's why we prioritize that. Okay, if it's at the base of the funnel, it's that important. If it's at the mid of the funnel, it's there, it's not there. And if it's at top of the funnel, it's not that important. It's just like a low hanging fruit, and you can do it any time of the product development. So that's a funnel approach. That is one thing what we use in our organization. And when I say organization, let's me be very clear. I'm not defining anything what we do across the organization, because every team will have their own workflow. And that's the beauty what we do at Red Hat and open source, because every team has their own set of stuff which they can do in their own way. So there is no defined stuff that, okay, you have to do in this way or that way. You can do whatever way you want to, whatever works for your team. That's the ideal approach. If it works for your team, it works for you, everything great. Otherwise you need to change it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of these frameworks are just it's just a starting point for your thought process. Not necessarily that you'll have to follow it to the dot. It depends on what companies you're working, what are the problem that you're working, how's the ecosystem around you. You actually customize most of these ideas and build it as per what is your requirement. So yeah, please don't confuse that frameworks as something that you have to use to be a PM. Okay, it's something that you have to think common sense and understand what could possibly help you solve the problem. So I think that's also a pretty awesome point, Mohit. Mohit, coming back to my first question, so crime branch. So
Okay.
some interesting stories from crime branch.
Yeah, so generally what happens for folks who are doing their engineering final year, they try to go into internship with different companies, right? They want to have pre-placement offers and other stuffs, right? But for me, I didn't want to go anywhere that sense, right? And me and one of my friend, we got an opportunity at that point of time where we have to work with Pune crime branch, where we have to go and educate them that how social media awareness is there, and if something is getting misused, like let's say it's hacked or it's not working properly, how you can report that to crime branch. And we used to go to different societies across the city. We used to go to some interior part of the places where people were not even aware of that, how social media can affect you and what are the different challenges. So this is something which was done as a like an internship part. But the most important part of that crime branch internship was that we used to get free food for the 3 months when we did with Pune crime branch, because those guys were so awesome that we used to like start from morning 9 to around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and after that they would just take on police jeep and they would roam around the city, and we would go to fancy restaurants just to have food. And this is I'm telling because I was a college student at that point of time, and this was really fun for us.
So,
because what we have seen with police is like, if you have like, I'm not going with a movie wala workflow, right? It's not that. But if you're traveling with police folks across the city, you're seeing how their workflow is, and that's really exciting for an individual who is just in their 20s, right? So that was very great for me as an internship part, because I didn't wanted to get into like a company workflow and do something there. So
I think pretty early in your career, you had a vision that someday you want to do something is really exciting and awesome. And then you became a product manager now.
yes,
So,
now I
okay,
can make those changes possible, right?
yeah, you can make those changes possible. Okay, so Mohit, we already stretched over time. Sorry for that. But one final question, and possibly the most important question that a lot of people would like to know from you. Uh, a lot of people want to make a transition to technical product management. Okay, and possibly quite a few of them already are technical in nature. They already have a technical background. What is your recommend? You are a live example of a person who's transitioned from technology to product management and technical product management roles. What is your advice to them? How can they make it proper in a proper way?
Uh, First of all, if I would be really happy if someone is trying to make the transition from their development, like engineer workflow or product management workflow in technical aspect. And I think if you have a vision where you think that you can make certain changes, it's not that when I say change, it's like change to the society. By change I mean change to any product. If you see, if you think that this is what can be improved, if you have that sort of vision and you really like to take decisions and plan roadmaps, I think technical product management is the cup of tea for you. uh, how to get into this? So first one would be like, you can discuss with your different folks whom you are working with. Like, let's say if you already have a product manager, right, you can discuss with him or her to understand that what extra things or what specific things you need to work upon with your daily job, so that you can try to get into that domain, right? First, the second thing would be to uh, make sure that you have that acumen to jump into that role, because that role is not going to be easy, right? Let's say you are a developer, right? You daily go and code for like 6 to 7 hours on Python or on JavaScript. But when you move to product management, let me be very honest, you won't be allowed to code, and you will have to attend lots of meetings. You will have to define roadmaps, you have to plan priorities, and you have to interact with all the stakeholders. And that interaction basically means that you need to have some answers before, because as soon as you jump to a meeting, there will be questions asked, right? Why we want to do this? Do you think this is going to help? Do you think this is useful? So you need to have that space mind and like properly define that you are comfortable in doing that, because there are certain folks who would be really great into that. They've always wanted to get into that domain, but let's say they're engineers and they're still doing coding. So if you have that set of mindset, I think technical product management is really good to go. And if you need any advice from me, like definitely reach out to me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm always available to interact with folks across the community, and I'm really hoping that India will have an awesome set of product managers in the future. So, and we still have awesome set of product managers. So I think this will keep on growing. So please feel free to reach out to me whenever you have any queries.
Absolutely. I mean, with the likes of you who openly share knowledge, I think India is definitely poised to be better in terms of having awesome set of product managers very soon. Yeah, it's only growing. The space is only growing in India, and it's really changing the shape of how product management is done across the world. In fact, so
Exactly.
thank you, Mohit, for this wonderful talk, and thank you for all the great insights that you shared with all of us. Friends, please feel free to connect with Mohit and keep following for all the updates that Mohit shares across on the social network so that you can keep yourself updated with the knowledge that he shares. And at the same time, also feel free to express your gratitude on the chat window and possibly on LinkedIn using Insaid handlers to kind of tag Mohit and express your gratitude for the kind of knowledge that he shared today. So, Mohit, as a small token of appreciation, we'll be sharing you a certificate from our side as well for your talk. And very soon, we would want to see students being successful in this space and thanking you for this knowledge that you shared today as well.
Thank you. I'm glad that I got this opportunity to interact with you folks. And I think we have approximately more than 80 attendees here. And
there were more than 130, I guess. And I don't know the YouTube count though. There was YouTube, which is also going live. So I expect around 150 folks would have listened to you live. So yeah, I think it was a very important session for a lot of people, in fact.
Yep, and I hope I made some of the folks Friday really awesome. So for me, it was great. I had a good Friday fun, and I'm looking forward for you guys to have more events in the future where I can be a part of it. So
definitely.
This was really great. Thank you for guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you all. Thank you all for participating in today's session. Tomorrow is the final day for India Product Week. So please make sure all of you, in case you have missed out any of the sessions, do watch the recording. This will be also uploaded on YouTube as a playlist. And Mohit, you might also want to share and spread the knowledge about this particular sequence that we had of India Product Week, where 7 product managers, all Indian product managers, who are changing the shape of products not only locally in India but also globally. So with that, I think we are done for today. Thanks a lot for attending today's session. And we'll catch up tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the final product session by Pawan. And this is going to be another fantastic session, like all the 6 that we had so far. So let's make sure that we get a lot of information, we capture a lot of information, and make the most out of this space. Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. See you.
Yep. Bye.